My theory was one take and get on to something else. Well, this is number 6. So let's get to it. Early in our young adult life together, Nancy and I had a couple of encounters with scammers. The first one was totally benign. A fast talking salesman convinced me that we could not live without a Collier's Encyclopedia because soon our 8-month-old son was going to need to look it up for school. Well, we had a little bit of time there if you do the math. Even though he was smart, we had to wait for a while before he could use that encyclopedia. But they sold a research service. I'll put air quotes on that. And when I tried to use the research service, the first thing I got was a manila envelope with several pages of information about ants, which was an interest of mine. If you want the definitive description, read E.O. Wilson's The Great Naturalist book, and you'll get all you need about ants. But there it was, Xerox copies from other reference books. I don't think they were from our encyclopedia, but when I look back on the encyclopedia, I actually had about as much information on ants as they sent me. But being a persistent cuss, I requested another report and got a note that I was overusing their service and should back off, which I did. The other one is why one of the reasons that you're not going to be able to convince me to cut or copy off of your feed and paste into mine, because there's something about that I don't like, because it feels like a chain letter. I don't know if there are ramifications because I don't think I've ever done it, even for the very worthy causes that you like. I'll share it. I'll just simply hit the share button and it posts as if I did it. But copying, paste, I don't like that. But I got a chain letter, and it talked about all the good luck the person who followed it did and how others had tragic bad luck, if you believe in that stuff. And sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. But anyway, and I'm just going to get rid of this. My texting keeps popping up on my phone. So to get to the point of that, I knew there was something wrong with it and that it would peter out eventually. But I thought, well, maybe it would work for me and my friends. So not only did I make stamped self-addressed envelopes to the 10 people or so that I sent it to, but I did 5 self-addressed envelopes for each one of those. So if you do the math, everyone sent back $1 to me. It would be quite a worthy endeavor. My wife reminds me that I'm also the guy that tried to set up a earthworm bed underneath our mobile home at the same place because I was going to make a lot of money selling earthworms on the side. Think about that for a minute. But anyway, to get back to this, I'm going to show you how much money I made after I sent all those letters out. Remember how much handwriting I had to do to make it legible and to get them all sealed and sent with a stamp on every one. Here it is. That's how many dollars came back to us. So those are good lessons. And but she reminded me when she talked about basically a scam involving home improvement, the day that I was working at home and Nancy was working down at the office as our office manager. She went down there 2 or 3 days a week for most of 48 years. And so the door bell went off, or the door knocked, and we didn't have Syncus, so I don't even think there was dog barking. And there was Timmy. And Timmy talked fast and claimed there was a referral from Mr. Hinkle of Hinkle Glass a few hills over, and that he had leftover asphalt material. and he would sell it to me for $1,500. But he wanted to make sure that he would give me a certain minimum. So we went out and he looked around, and it was a perfect opportunity for me. He could fill the entirety in front of our 3-bay garage, the entirety in front of our house, and 50 to 100 feet down towards the first bend in our driveway. So I agreed. We shook on it. Up he came. He had a crew. I think there was a pickup truck and a dump truck, and there was lots of fuss and fury. And I was so proud that Nancy was going to come home and see her brand new paved driveway. So I was there with Timmy as they got to the mark that he had promised to pay, and or pave, not pay. And AT&T is sending me text after text for some reason. But to get to the point, and yes, it would be nice to get to the point, Bert, we finished, and I authorized a few extra feet. I could cover it in probably 2 strides. And I went inside for a few minutes as they were cleaning up and sweeping and tamping down the edges, and they were doing a good job. The door opened, came out, he had me inspect it, tell him I was pleased with it, and then said, "That will be $5,000. And I said, "Timmy, you quoted $1,500. He said, "Well, you authorized the extra pavement." And I'm looking at this $100 worth of pavement, and had he asked me for another 100, that would not have been a problem. But I put my foot down and I said, "I'm not paying $5,000. At that point, he turned to his guys and told them that I was not going to pay the demanded amount, and they got grim looks on their faces. They lined up side by side. Of course, they're all sturdy, hardy, young workmen, and came walking towards my front door. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, Tim, I'll get the money, and you just wait right here." And so they stopped. I went in, unlocked my combination briefcase, pulled out the Star 9mm semi-automatic renovated or rejuvenated police pistol, put it in my belt, walked back out, stepped on the stoop, and said, "Timmy, it's time for you to leave. If you will come in tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'll have your money for you." So he seemed grudgingly satisfied with that. So they left, and I went to the office early the next morning. I typed up a I dictated a civil complaint. My staff arrived at 8. She promptly typed it up. I walked it over to the circuit clerk, and I filed my suit: breach of contract, fraud, aggravation and inconvenience, and various damages, civil damages. I added a punitive damage for the fraud of $1 million. And when Timmy's dad came in to pick up my check, I had the check for him, and I served him as my own process server with a lawsuit for $1 million. Timmy said his dad was not in good health, and I almost gave him a heart attack, and I thought, now there would be some poetic justice. So you should stand up to scammers, never be browbeaten or intimidated. But what about when your scammer is in Nigeria or Russia or Armenia or Cleveland? Our legal system's not set up to get those guys. It takes a very special occasion to do that. So especially with your elderly relatives, and I think of my beloved mother-in-law, Marjorie, when Justin called her from Niagara Falls to tell her that when he was across the border partying, he had been arrested and he needed to get bailed out, and she needed to send money or maybe wire money to him, she was shrewd enough to basically tell him to take a hike because thank God it was not Justin. But not everybody feels that way, and especially people that have learned to trust in a small town and they do purchase something or send something off. I've had clients who lost their life savings to their new internet boyfriend who was going to come and take care of them. So the point of all this is educate yourself, be very, very careful, be skeptical. If it seems too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And thank you to my sister Chris for prompting these memories.